humble, I feel humble. I'm humble, I feel humble.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Chris, and I'm back with another episode of Humble Beginnings. And today I have a man who believes in miracles, who famously coined the slogan, It's Miracle Season. He's a speaker, author, mindset coach, and reality TV star, and to me, a little bit of a celebrity, if you will. And he's most known for appearing on season 13 of The Bachelorette, and he is America's fan favorite, Eric Bigger. Woo! Um,
Thank you for the intro. I appreciate it. Happy to be here and happy to talk and just open up the floodgates. It's miracle season. We made it to another day.
yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you for just taking the time out to record with me today. And thank you for actually being my first on-camera interview.
Oh,
Um,
really?
because for people who know me, I come from a production and news background, and so I've wanted my own studio before I could get on camera. So I was
Yeah,
doing my podcast off camera, just because I didn't have the space that I wanted. But
yeah,
yeah, I was like, you know what? It's just time to get on camera, and just
yeah.
just do it big, right? So
Man, yeah.
yeah,
Congratulations. Well, I'm honored to be the first of the first.
yeah, no, and
Yeah.
thank you. And so my question is, what did you pray about today? And I know that's kind of a random question, but I asked that
Nah,
because
that's
I
not.
see
Yeah.
you praying a lot. So I just kind of wanted to start off by asking, what did you pray about today?
That's a great question. I love that question. I mean, because I really prayed. I was just telling a friend last night, they should pray around the things that they challenge with. So when those things challenge them, they remember the prayer. The fact that you posed the question, I prayed that, that I think the right thoughts, speak the right words, post the right content, inspire, impact people in the most authentic way. I ask for guidance, direction, and that I be in my highest self today, that I do what I need to do to add value to the world and others, and I be a light. And, I ask for guidance and things I have challenges about. And I'm just thankful, So I really pray for guidance to post the right content, think the right thoughts, be in a high vibrational state, and really just be a blessing to others and do what I'm here to do, whatever that moment calls in this moment as we speak. So here we are.
Mm, I like that, and especially praying about being your higher self. I think that's super
Yeah,
important. Yeah. Um,
absolutely.
and so speaking of like your higher self and kind of digging into your background a little bit, what were some of those seeds that were slowly planted that really helped propel your spiritual, mental, and emotional journey? I know the Bachelorette was one of those seeds that were planted, and I know you talked about that, but what else? What really helped propel you to the spiritual state that you're in now?
I think the seeds of pain, the seeds of pain. I feel like we always feel like we come from a harvest of good seeds, but, I come from a harvest of painful seeds. Not that it's bad, it just shapes you in a different way. And so it allowed me to kind of understand, like, okay, what is these pointers? What are these challenges? Why these things are happening? And I just started at a young age, and I just, didn't grow up in the church, wasn't religious, but always know about prayer in the Bible in some sort. My dad would speak of it, my mom would speak of it, but it wasn't like thrown on me. I just started praying, and it became like a safe haven of like who I am and what I am. And it's led me to so many different miracles in my lifetime and so many different life experiences where I'm the testament and testimony to say it works. Prayer works, and it's worked for me. And everything, I promise you, everything I've ever prayed for has come to pass, has come to fruition. So not only do I do it because I know it's true, but I do it also because I have revelations, I have clarity that it works, opposed to just praying because, oh, I want something or I need something. But I would say that the seeds of pain, coming from pain, growing up in Baltimore, seeing, negativity, challenges, and changes in an uncomfortable way, all I could do was pray. At least that's what I thought, when I was young. And that's where it started.
Mhm. And I heard you use the keyword miracle, right? And I know you're always talking about it's miracle season, but I really want to know, what does it truly mean to have a miracle season, and how do you personally define miracle?
Yeah. So it's miracle season is a metamorphosis, right? The caterpillar, to become the butterfly, got to be the caterpillar, right? Um, but I think for me, what I know is that it's a transformation of self-discovery, right? From an internal and individual basis, but in a general basis for the collective consciousness, this miracle season is a metamorphosis to a new stage in life that you desire, you want, you yearn, you set intentions on. So I always give the story or the analogy of, a baby being born. The mom, the baby's in the stomach for 9 months. That's a season, right? And in those seasons of 9 months, there's so many ups and downs, challenges, changes, differences, adversity, good moments. And after 9 months, a miracle comes out. So in order to get a miracle in your life or in your lifetime, you got to go through something to get it, to get that new job, to get that new relationship, to get that new career, to move to a different city, to start a podcast, right? Like you said this before we got on air, you was like, this was 5 years in the making, I believe. It took you some time, but so many things you had to go. But now look at you, Nick. And now this is your first on camera. Like, this is a miracle. This is what it's miracle season is about. See, here's the thing about a miracle. We only see the miracle, right? We see that we're on this podcast. You and I are talking, but we didn't see the seasons that it took up to this point, because it wasn't about you getting on a podcast and filming it. It's what you had to become. So it's miracle season is a becoming of something to get the thing you yearn for, which is the miracle. So that's what is miracle season. You have to transform. People have to transform to get where they want to go. And I think sometimes people want miracles, but they don't want the seasons that come with the miracles. And those seasons are always not the best seasons, if you get what I'm saying. Like on my show, I went through the most. I've asked a lot of guys on my season. The therapist, I didn't see her to the week 8 or week 9 or week 7. And she's like, I didn't call to see you because all the guys in the house, and they were coming to you to get help. And I was going through the most, right? I got into it with the Bachelorette, I messed my shoulder up. I wanted to leave. I was depressed at one point, but nobody would know. But I knew from there, outside of the show, I didn't win the show, but I won my season. I got my miracle of falling in love, traveling the world, and starting and launching my podcast, right? My brand and my books. But I had to go through that season of 10 weeks of uncomfortability around a bunch of men I don't know, and cameras and producers. Like, that was uncomfortable. And then this came to light because it came through me. And boom, here we are. So I'm grateful for those seasons, because now I can live the miracle and be the testament of what that looks like and is in life every day.
And I have a piggyback question onto that. What would you say to someone who doesn't believe in miracles?
Well, the thing is, if you don't believe in miracles, that's fine. That's a miracle that you don't believe in it. So now we just got to unpack, what do you believe? Because whatever you believe is a miracle, right? Because you believe it, right? So meaning that if a person doesn't believe in a miracle, that's fine. We want to get to the root of, why don't you believe in miracles? What do you believe in? Then you can understand, if you believe in an other thing, there's something about that thing that's a miracle to you because you believe it, right? And whatever that thing is, you going through some trials, tribulations, some changes to really manifest whatever that is. So you believe something. It might not be a miracle, but you're a miracle living. So if you don't believe miracles, think about how you got here. Think about how you were born and how you came into. That's a miracle. There's no book to how that happened. Like, you came out of your mom's womb. So I would just tell people, if you don't believe, I will ask them, one, what do you believe? Two, you're a walking miracle. You're breathing air. That's a miracle itself. You have thoughts, you have emotions. All that's part of your miracle. It's just all about understanding the miracle that you are. And I think once you understand the miracle that you are, you'll believe in miracles. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like how you put that. And so one thing I also want to touch on is staying in the present, because that's something that you also talk about. And so in the past, you always thought ahead, focused on the future, we're staying on the go, right? But you weren't always living in the moment. I'm guilty of this, extremely guilty of this myself. So what have you discovered about staying present?
Well, I will say, to this day, it's still a challenge. And I think a lot of it comes from fear of not knowing, right? But I do think when you're in the presence, like we're in this moment, beautiful things are happening. Beautiful things are happening. right? So when you're present, life is happening. The best things in my life happen when I'm not thinking about them, when I'm not asking, where are they? That's being present. When you're present, miracles happen. Like I'll give you a prime example. I had a I had a call for big time brand from Procter and Gamble to come and do like a wellness retreat, speak, at the headquarters. This was in July. They told me they would follow up. I'm like, okay, I want to do this corporate event, come as a speaker, as a thought leader, crickets, whatever. So then I followed up in August on email, like August 14th, nothing. So yesterday, I texted the person directly, didn't text back. I'm like, okay. I woke up 5:30 this morning. They on the East Coast. I get an email, miracle. Because I'm not thinking about it because I was present. Well, I wasn't going to my email like, did I get a response, right? It came when I wasn't looking for it because I was present. So I think when we're not present, we push away the things the future is trying to bring into our vibration, right? Imagine me not being present for your questions. Imagine me not being present for you commenting on my post, me not really being there and really feeling out what you're saying. I can't give you the best me. I can't give you the miracle that comes from my soul because I'm worrying about something that doesn't exist right now, the future. But a lot of mine is fear, trauma from my childhood. And also I did some deep healing work, past life regressions where my ancestors or in the past life, there was a fear if I didn't do what I needed to do, something bad was happening, right? So it kept me on the go. But now I just think miracles happen when you're present. The best things in your life happen when you're present. When you're having fun and you out, you ain't, oh my God, I just got the email. Like, we about to do this interview. They want to hire me for be a reporter courtside at the Denver Nuggets game. Like, it's like, because you're present, you're grounded, you're allowing the universe to work for you and not against you. When we're not present, we're pushing things away because we don't know what the universe has for us when we're trying to control the external world as much as we want. So best things happens when you're present.
Mm-hmm. And one thing you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said the future not really existing. Can you expand more on that and what you mean? Because to me, I'm still trying to catch up and I'm like, but wait, doesn't the future exist? And I know there's people that say, oh, tomorrow's not promised, and so forth. But what do you mean by that?
Well, the future is now. That is the present. That is the future. I had somebody tell me, and that's the thing about public success. I had a family member tell me, you don't know this, you don't know that, right? There's people who've done what you've done before you, and that's history. And I say, guess what? I'm the new history. I am the future. I'm creating my own history. I get that other people were before me, and I can look up their story and their trials and tribulations, but I'm gonna do it different. So the future is now. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about the mantra that I came up with. I think is a little part of his mantra is the future is now. Feel it. What does the future feel like for you? Right? What is it? How do you see the future playing out? But like, how do you embody that in your body? Right? And so the future is now because you can get an opportunity right now and change your life. But if you're looking at 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, are you not gonna take the opportunity because it doesn't look like the future you want to plan in your mind? Right? The future is now. So anything that has come into my vibration, that is part of my future because it's trying to take me somewhere. Like you're taking me somewhere, right? You're asking me for an interview. I don't know what this interview is going to do for my life. You don't know what it's going to do for your life. When I went to South of France this summer, I got interviewed by Page Six in the New York Post, right? It went viral. It made the newspapers. I didn't know that was going to happen, but that was part of my future in that moment, right? I'm in Cannes, South of France, and I'm in the front of the newspaper. I'm like, wow, like I couldn't control that. Before I went there, I couldn't imagine that happening, right? But I was present in the interview. You get what I'm saying? And then that propelled me to the future because that was the future. But I didn't know what it was created in the moment that the person was interviewing me. So the future is the present. It is the now. We just can't see it because we're looking. I mean, I've done it. What am I gonna do? 3 months, 6 months, 4 months, 5 months, 8 months. I don't know. And everybody's different, but the future is now.
Hmm. So I want to piggyback and ask you another question. So, what would you say to people who are big on doing like the 3 year, 5 year, 10 year plans? Since the future is now, like you're saying.
Well, I think that's their future in the now, them planning, right? But they also got to be aware of what you're going to do when the pivots come. What you're going to do when the laws of rhythm of life changes you and you get an unexpected call. Not that you got a plan for that, but you can't because that's not the future, right? We don't know what the future holds. So I'm saying the people that 3 year, 5 year plans, do the plan, have the intention setting, do all the things, but be present and be open to infinite possibilities of the future. Don't just put yourself in this bind where I have to do this, I have to do that. Keep it there, but also life is going to throw you things that can get you off pivot and might keep you away, but also keep you in a line of where you deserve to be. I never thought I would be on TV. It never was my passion. Never was my intention. Oh, be on TV. Now, when I got to LA, I was like, you know what? I could do background acting, right? To kind of help, but that was never a passion. My passion is to help people. So when I did go on TV, I knew that this would happen, right? TV was debate. I knew that this is the platform of TV is for me to give my truth to the people who saw me and who see me, so I can tell them how I got there. But that was never in my wheelhouse. That was never in my future planning, right? That I want to be on TV. I want to go to LA. It came to me. So I tell people, keep your schedules, keep your plans. Don't change who you are. It's just a perspective I'm giving, and think about it in a different way because life will change you. But at the same time, I think the more you grow and evolve, your future is always going to be promising, even if it doesn't feel like that in the moment.
I like
Yeah.
that answer.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about healing. And healing is important for our life journey, but how do we know when we're just checking off the boxes just to say that we're healing? And in your experience, how do we know when we're being intellectually dishonest with ourselves? And to also add on to that, I want to know too, how do you know when you're in alignment? Are there certain signs, symbols, repeating number sequences that you'll see that show you that you're in alignment? So, yeah.
Well, the first question was, how do we know we're healing?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we don't, but sometimes we do, meaning that I've done so much self-work on myself, but other people can see it. So the only way, honestly, to know you're healing is to get perspective of others. Is to, i.e., be in a relationship. Is to, i.e., have a therapist, right? To have someone on the other side either be your mirror or perspective for you. Because when you spend so much time alone, like I have in my lifetime, I know I'm healing and growing, but I can't see the growth because I'm in it. But when you get in a relationship, you know, like, oh, wow, I got some more healing to do. I'm not as healed as I thought. Or, you know, someone older than you comes up and says, man, I like how you said that. I like how you know, held yourself accountable. Prime example, I had a speech coach 3 years ago. And because I had my accent from Baltimore, we would say Baltimore, we would say Saturday and not Saturday. So these were challenges that were in my way that I didn't know until someone made me aware. So I had a speech coach. And then I had to go on KTLA to speak about suicide prevention, Alive Together with Dee Dee Hurst. I actually have a walk coming up this weekend, same event. And I was so judgmental of myself as I was in the interview. But after I watched it, I could see the growth, right? But if I didn't go to that coach and get some feedback on my speaking, I wouldn't have been aware of where I was going. So you need a coach, you need a relationship, you need a partnership, you need someone on the other side to kind of give you perspective on the healing. And then what was your question number 2?
Oh, I just wanted to know too, like, how do we know when we're being intellectually dishonest with ourselves in regards to
Oh,
healing and
oh yeah. So then you said something about checking off the box. So I checked off the box a lot of times just to feel like I'm getting something done because, oh, I want to be productive. And I think my biggest fear in life, again, being present, is the unknown, right? When I say the unknown, the future, but the future is now. So I felt like I had more control when I checked off the boxes. And that's why we plan, and that's why we have jobs, and that's why we have appointments, and we have time. It just feels like we're in control. We're really not in control because something can happen tomorrow and affect everyone on the planet, right? So you know when you're dishonest and you said something about alignment. I just remember. You know when you're dishonest when your body tells you. You know you're doing something and it just don't feel right. Your gut instinct, your intuition is not in alignment. It's not on point. You know when you're in alignment when things just flow. You're not even thinking. You're present, right? They're just happening. That's how you know you're in alignment. Or you get that call, like, you as a form for me is alignment, right? By the way, I'm just looking at because I got a post to go up. You know what I mean? I got another post call today. Then I got like it's all these things that lets me know that I'm in alignment. Like you are a part of my alignment, but you don't know that, right? Mm-hmm. You're giving me that, okay, people want to hear from me. People want to see me. Okay, cool. This is an opportunity to put myself out there. So alignment equals flow. It's effortless. It happens. It's like having a best friend. Y'all just get along. Y'all just funny. That's alignment. You don't got to question them. You trust them. That's alignment. And when you lie to yourself when your body's off, the body keeps the score. You're like, should I be doing this? Even if, like, say, for instance, I'll give you an example. You've been working for yourself for 6 months and you're not making that much money and you want to go back to a job, but the corporate life of the job, it's not. And so you go to apply. And as you apply, you just feel off. Like your body feels off. Like it feels off. That's how you know you're not in alignment and you're lying to yourself. That you shouldn't be applying to this job. And what they're saying is calling on your higher self to have more faith and trust that something greater is on the way. But me as well, we get so screwed up in like what won't happen, what will happen, because we want to control. That comes in that plan again, right? But I had this, let the universe unfold for you in a beautiful way and let your miracle happen in this uncomfortable season. So it's a challenge, but when you get that awareness and understanding, you can grow through that with peace and grace and compassion.
I like that. And I would like to know too, how do you stay open but balance your privacy, but still also remain honest at the same time? And I ask that because in your line of work, like obviously you do want to be pretty open and honest, right? But there's also moments I feel you probably want to reserve for yourself. So how do you balance that?
Man, that's such a great question because I fight with that. Because most of my life I hid the truth from everybody. That's why when I went on the show and said what I said, my parents and people were shocked. Like, really? You felt that way? So I've always hid the truth from people about how I feel because I feel like it didn't matter, because if I did, they wouldn't do anything with it. So now that I'm more evolved, I feel like people want that from me because I live this life, this persona that I have to be happy all the time. I have to be positive. I have to be successful. I have to look a certain way to make everybody else feel seen, safe, and heard. Because if they knew the real me, the real E from Baltimore, they wouldn't accept me. They wouldn't love me. They wouldn't like me. So now as I'm evolved and grown, I feel like the best self is the most authentic, transparent self. Now, I had someone reach out to me early this week, or last weekend. I say, hey, man, what's going on? I feel like you feel different. I said, yeah, I am different. I said, I've grown a lot this year. It's been a lot of contrast. She's like, So I started giving them details. They're like, whoa, whoa, really? I'm like, I said, yeah, so that's what my life's been like. And it's like, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I said, nah, don't ever say that. I don't like sorry people. Don't ever say sorry to hear that. Just say, okay, it's all right. It's life. Life is life, but I just think it comes down to the person, because everybody has their perception, their beliefs, and their paradigms, but that's how they see life. So I think it's in my wheelhouse to be raw and authentic and vulnerable. Not that I gotta give the details. I can kind of be more general about it. Like I think Rachel Lindsay and Van Lathan, I think his last name, they have a podcast, and Larry Elder was on there. Rachel was asking Larry Elder, he's a Republican Black candidate to run for president, and he believed that the racial disparity or in America is because of fatherlessness. Like there's not many fathers around. So they was kind of going back and forth. You can kind of tell, like, not that they didn't like him, but they was kind of challenging him. So I said, but he didn't answer her question. So I comment, hey, he should have just answered the question if he combats fatherlessness. Like, how's he doing it if you're the president? Like, what are you doing to combat that? So, He didn't answer the question. And then I said again, I said, it is a real thing because I'm from it, right? And I added to the comment and everyone started, some people like, yeah, but then yeah. And it's like, listen, that's their perspective, just like it was mine. Doesn't make it right or wrong. So then I say, well, it's not about who's right, it's about what's right. So the piggyback to bring that all back to center, when it comes to being authentic and sharing your truth, you got to come back to what's truth for you and what do you feel most comfortable serving in that moment. Not what your mom, your dad, your therapist say, because you might have to get that out to heal parts of you that you're not aware of.
And to piggyback off of that, do you ever feel judged for really being so open and honest? Like, I'm curious to know too, has your family ever kind of looked at you kind of or side-eyed you, or maybe someone close to you being like, hey, why are you sharing so much, or why are you so open?
Yeah, so that's the thing. I've really been in the spectrum for years, like between perfectionism and caring about what people think, and for a long time, right? That's been my paradigm from my trauma. Like, I want you to love me, so I'm gonna do everything for you to love me and not to love me. So my paradigm was set to that. But when I got on TV, I just got to a point where I actually was in a DM with a fan, and it was like, you don't know about Miracle Season, and you don't have the right to say that. And this woman lived in Baltimore. She didn't know I was from Baltimore. I said, you don't even know the city you live in, right? And I told myself after that moment, I will never, ever go back and forth in a DM as long as I did, as long as I with anybody, right? And so even to this day, I won't give too much energy on comments that doesn't deserve it. I'll say what I need to say and then kind of fall back. But after that moment, I'm like, I don't care what you think or feel or say, because you're always going to think, feel, and say. And with America, we're so divided and we're so hypocritical, because one minute we love you, then one minute we hate you. And I realized that on TV, like, oh, I was a fan favorite, then I was a villain. Oh, you love me now, but you hate me. You thought I committed a crime. So my mom would always say, just be careful, because you could tell your story too early. And I'm like, Mom, what's too early? Like, my story is always evolving. So there's a book by Peter Gerber said, tell your story to win. That's how you win over people. You tell your story. Anybody that's great, you know their story. And I think we get so consumed in our story that we're so afraid to share it, but that's how you bear it, and that's how you get out of it. That's why you go to therapy. When you go to therapy, you're telling them your narratives, your patterns, your stories, your pain. That's the story you're telling. You're healing. What we reveal, we heal. So I think we just got to get out of this concept that, if I share too much, someone can take it. No, they can't. That's your truth. No one can take advantage of your truth. Now, people can take advantage of your innocence where you can't see things, but be your most authentic self when you can, where you're at. Do what you can and not what you can't. Everybody's on a different level in life, so you got to share what's fit you the most in that moment.
I like that. And you're also a curious person. And so I want to know, how do you continue to stay curious? How do you continue to stay learning?
Reading books, doing podcast interviews like this, thinking about the thinking, like asking myself, like, where do these thoughts come from? Why am I in this space emotionally and mentally? Who am I? What do I want? And I'm just studying people, watching YouTube videos, just constantly, just like even like I shared that podcast interview that they did with Larry Elder, like curious about where people think he is, like where their mind, and everyone is so we're just embedded to be selfish, right? And so I've been fortunate to be on all spectrums of life, where I come from the inner city of Baltimore. I've been in LA more than a decade. My clients are wealthy and make really great money. I've been on TV. I've traveled the world. So I've seen all types of personalities and perceptions and paradigms. And what I realized is that everybody picks a side. And so I used to try to protect people on all sides. Like, oh, my people over here in the inner city, oh, the wealth is like, no, that's your problem. I don't have a problem with having a problem, because I'm not picking a side. I'm on my side. This is my truth. This is what I believe. You're doing the same thing they're doing. It just looks different because the color or the coding or the culture is different. It's all the same thing. When we're Republican, Democrat, you're picking a side. And it's okay, but just know that no one's better, no one's worse. It's just everyone's coming from a different place. So I'm just fortunate to kind of have awareness from being curious, from reading, from learning, and asking myself questions. You know, so even when I'm wrong, I could be wrong. I said it in the post. I said the ego is tricky. I could be wrong. That's the thing with me. I'm willing to be wrong to be right, and not even to be right, just to have a different perspective. Say, you know what? I never looked at it like that. Thank you for sharing. But if I just submit to your truth all day, I can never learn. So I will have to challenge you at some point. How can we grow if we don't challenge someone's status quo or their perception on life or things? So I'm open. That's how I stay open minded, by being okay and being willing to take the risk to be wrong or to be fixated in a different way. So great question.
And speaking of like learning and being curious, I actually came across a clip on your Instagram page where you were recently talking about toxic masculinity in an interview. And you said, Baltimore taught me to be super masculine to protect myself. However, going on TV for several weeks, I discovered my vulnerability in how to receive and be in my feminine. And you also mentioned how you balance both masculine and feminine energies in how to receive. So my question is, how were you able to do that? And what does receiving look like for you?
Well, receiving is the feminine. Masculine is the giving. That's all it is. Like, it's that simple. Masculine wants to give, the feminine wants to receive. When you're allowing yourself to receive the truth through your voice as you're speaking your truth, your vulnerability, you're going to receive feedback, opinion. But when you're masculine on your feedback, you're covering up that feminine that you need to receive, because you want that love, which is feminine. You want that understanding, which is feminine. Wanting to be right and to be strong is the masculine. You want to protect the feminine, right? That's what the masculine usually does, protects the feminine. So anybody that's predominantly in their masculine is because they're trying to protect their feminine. They're trying to protect their feelings, their emotions, their heart, their fears, right? The intangible things of their being. So for me, it was all about getting to a space where I can align the two and center myself around, okay, I know my masculine traits. Okay, these are my feminine traits, where I can be really raw and authentic and empower, and I can be soft, enlightened and compassionate, right? And so marrying the two and letting people know, like, it's okay to be in your feminine at times, because that's how you heal. You can't heal from being masculine all the time. I tell people, listen, when you're weak, you're strong. When you're strong, you're weak. If I cry right now, I'm actually stronger than if I'm not crying, if there's something that's coming up, right? So I'll give you an example. If something like, say for instance, this interview is tearing me up and I'm trying to hold it in. That's the masculine trying to hold on. But guess what? If I come against another person who's masculine but knows how to be feminine, that person, the entity, is going to defeat me, because they're not afraid to let their emotions go, to let their feelings be, and let the tears come down. So when you cry and you release that energy, what happens? Shoulders drop, you feel lighter, you start wiping your tears, feel better, you're more stronger. But when you're holding on, you're weak. So all the masculinity, toxic masculinity, like, I think you should be masculine. But I can see right through a man who's super masculine. I can see right through a woman who's super masculine. Like, you're gonna always fail in a sense of a way when you're even by yourself, or when you're with someone who can be more feminine than you in a tough moment. And it's not that failure is bad; it's just a way for you to learn. So it's just a duality of life. It can't be light all day. It can't be dark all day, right? There's a balance.
Mm-hmm. And I have a follow-up question to that, because I was kind of curious if maybe locations played a role. And so, has living in LA allowed you to release some of that toxic masculinity per se, and embrace the feminine aspect of yourself? And again, I ask because we're often products of our environment, and being in Baltimore is a completely different setting than being in LA. So do you think if you lived in Baltimore, you would kind of take on those masculine traits a little bit more? I hope that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, for sure. Because Baltimore is a different vibration. The frequency is different there. You got to be more strong. You definitely got to be in your masculine, because there's so much going on that is dangerous, that's negative, that's challenging. So yeah, and then in LA, the weather is always nice. The sun is always out. It's easy to be free out here when you don't have a lot of, contrast or fear you bearing type of energy around you. Yeah, like I was just in Baltimore, and like every time I'm in Baltimore, it's not that I have to put on a certain type of energy, but I have to bring a certain type of awareness, right? And know like I know who I am, but I also know where I'm at, right? Like I can't just like, oh yeah, I'm just masculine, but I know how to be feminine. Like, oh, like, what you call the trenches? You're really in the mix. So it's just a being. That's why it's important for men and women, and everyone included, is that you got to embody both parts of yourself so you can understand what parts needed the most. Like I don't always have to be masculine or aggressive. I don't always have to be feminine and soft. I know when to utilize those traits within myself to benefit the environment or the moment. So yeah, for sure, Baltimore. When I was there, like I felt the energy, like it was heavy. It was like, man, whoo. Sometimes you need to get away to let go, but that's just what it is.
Mm-hmm. And another follow-up question is, would you ever write a book on masculinity and some of the lessons and things that you've discovered?
That was a great question. I saw that in the email. That's how I can remember it. I never thought of that. That's a great idea for a book. I'm actually writing a new book though. I got a book. It'll be out next year sometime. I'm in a process of like the third week in the writing phase, but it'll be out. It'll be out. But it's more from a brand perspective. How to work with the biggest and largest brands and agencies in the world, and that's all comes from learning how to be what energies to be in, masculine, feminine, traveling the world, knowing when to turn it on, turn it off, and knowing what the audience is asking for, knowing who I am, and knowing that I belong and I'm worthy of what I want. And so that's something I'll put on my list and something to think about. And if it's not a book like intentionally about that, maybe I'll put it in one of those biography books or one of those memoirs where I'll talk about it. So that's a great starting point. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no, thank you. And so I kind of want to talk and touch on the Bachelorette a little bit. I would be remiss if I didn't. And so from a societal standpoint, men are responsible for pursuing and chasing women. And we know the show helped contribute and kickstart the healing process for you. But what was it like competing with a ton of men who were also vying for Rachel's attention? And did it at one point do something to your self-esteem?
Well, I think this is the first time in my life, and I don't want to say incarceration or prison or jail because I've never been there, but it felt like boarding school. Because I've never been around so many men at one time. It was like 31 men, so I was one of 31, right? And I really felt like, damn, everyone's tall, everyone's in shape, everyone has a look, people got real jobs and careers. I was like, whoa, this is intense. So it made me aware, like where I was at, who I was around, what was going on. And I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I grew. Like it was a lot of challenges in that season because I was new to a lot of things and green. Any people who know astrology, that was also like my Saturn return. So I was going into my 30s. So it was it was tough because it was preparing me for that. But I just had my faith in God and I was just praying. It was nights where I wanted to go home. Like I was like, this how you do? I was like, this is how you become successful. This is what the greats got to go through. Like it was so tough. It was a miracle season. Like it literally was a metamorphosis. It was a transformation. That's when I say it's miracle season because I got my miracle in my season. But I went through so many things, like I said earlier, within that season to get that miracle. But you didn't see that. You only see me come out on top. I didn't make it to the end, but I made it to the end. And I'm this guy. And it's like, yeah, this guy went through so much that you didn't see that forced me to grow. Like I said in the beginning, like my seeds was planted from a pain. And from that, my spirituality evolved. So yeah, those things have always been around a lot of masculine energy, being one of many, uncertainty, not having your phone, not having your friends or family to console or talk to. It was tough, but that's how I grew, not having that.
Mm-hmm. And to follow up with that too, how were you able to center yourself amongst the drama, the gossiping, and how did you make sure that your energy wasn't depleted? Because even just from a viewer standpoint, I finally did watch your season. I did my research, and just even watching like the men arguing and gossiping, I was just like, oh my God, it's so much energy. It's a lot. It's a little bit daunting. So how are you able to really center yourself?
Honestly, I wasn't. Only thing I could do was pray because in moments I was like cotton mouth, like my mouth was dry. Like I knew I was in that symptomatic like nervous system response where I was just nervous, like my body was shut down. Like I would drink water, and my mouth would still be white, and like because it was like it's like I was really being triggered, and I was so in fear because I didn't know like you're out of your comfort zone. So I just did the best I could, and I say prayer helped as we talked earlier, first question, and I just kept going. But there was moments where I was being addressed about something I didn't do or offended, and then one moment I took up for myself. That's when the show turned into my favor. When I stepped into my power, and I let people overpower me because of fear, right? But it was hard. I mean, it was moments I'm drinking water, my mouth still dry. Like, what's happening to my body? Like, I'm nervous. Like, I feel stuck. Like, I didn't. I just had to deal with whatever that was. It was scary, but I got through it.
Ooh, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and I want to know too, what did the show teach you about competition?
Well, I always knew, like before and while I was on the show, I was never in competition with another man. I don't compete with another man. I compete with myself. Now, not that I didn't think about there was, of course, there's other suitors, but he can't be me, I can't be him. So if I'm the best me, that's what's going to rise to the occasion. I can't be better than him because I can't be him. Because we have different viewpoints, different ideologies, different upbringing. So I'm never competing with another man. Women need to know that as well. Like even in a real relationship, like you're never competing with anybody but yourself because you have different things within you that makes up things that happen that you can't see. So, um, yeah, that was never me competing with anyone. I was competing with myself, my higher self, my best self, my fearful self. Those are my competitors every day to this day. You know.
And so I want to ask you too, why is it important that people compete with themselves and not with others? And I ask that because even sometimes I'll struggle with it, right? I'll always remind myself, okay, I'm competing against myself. But sometimes society has a way of making you want to compete or thinking you have to compete with others. So why is it important we compete with ourselves?
Well, I mean, the world is set up for you to compete with others. Our external environment gives us things to look at. Look at sports, you're competing against somebody, right? Or from a 3D standpoint. So the world gives us this competition from the external environment, but the only competition you're competing against every day is the internal environment of yourself. And I said in another podcast is that if you don't know yourself, you can't grow yourself. So I've seen people who make tons of money because they think they're competing to make more money, and then they haven't grown and they're not happy. It's because that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're trying to compete against this girl over here that you see on social media, but you don't know what she went through behind the scenes. You don't know how she got there. So you're only competing off what you see and not what you know. So the only thing you need to know is who you really are and who you're not, right? And the reason you should compete with yourself because you're the only self that you got to go back to every day and every night. When it comes to bed, when it comes to leaving the earth, in a relationship, you still got to come back to self. So if you're not constantly trying to evolve that or understand that person or read that person to be better, there's always going to be competition outside of yourself because you're not never looking inside yourself. It's just like you'll be in the matrix of what the world tells you: compete, 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 compete. It's like competing for what? You can't have what I can have. I can't have what you can have. And if we do both have the same thing, our experiences with it are going to be different. That's all.
Hmm, I like that. Um, and I would like to know too, going a little bit back to The Bachelorette, if you were to create your own version of The Bachelor and Bachelorette, what would that look like? I know previously in the past in interviews you've talked about having diversity behind the scenes, so forth. But I I'm curious to know, like, would you have some spiritual elements in there? Any different therapy elements you would have in there? What would your version be like?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this the other night because I have a client. She's a manifestation coach, and talking about doing a show with, before people go into this island or this dating experience, they should come and get some work done around the areas of love, right? And see what their love paradigm is, their beliefs around love, their love language. So I would add that component. I also would have an astrologer on there. So I would have their chart being read before. I'll have this coach come help them around love, and then I'll have someone praying for them in the space of love, and then I'll release them to the show. And of course, it'll be diverse, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic. You'll have them all because you want to see everybody together to see how everybody's response is going to be. Because if you only stay within the realms of where you're from, that's all you're going to ever know. And sometimes that's all people want to know, and that's okay. But everybody's different. So I feel like it's always important to see how someone outside of yourself or different than you receive love and sees love. So you want to put it on a platform so the world can see and not keep it so jaded and in this space of this is what we do because of the audience, which I think is great because from a business standpoint, if you're making money off of that, why would you change it? Respectfully, if it makes sense, it makes sense. You don't have to make it diverse. But I think for my show, I want it to be diverse because, we say things until we experience them. I would never date this, so I would never, but until you get in front of it. What if that person is your match? And this on the show, we know these people are going to match because we got their chart, we did their love reading, but they don't know before they go. So that can be a part of like, Mike and Jennifer, they really get along. But they don't know that. But they're, one is Black and one is Asian, or one is white and one is Hispanic, right? They don't know that. And boom, from the stats, look, they're in the final four of love. It's like, but I would think that would be a very engaging show and make people think like, oh my God, I would never think they would be together. That's just so crazy. That people like, I need to start looking at my chart. I need a love reading. Oh, I need someone praying. It's like, it's a whole nother dynamic. It's not just like, oh, you look good, let's date. Like, it don't work like that. But most people don't know that.
And quick question too. Yeah. Do you think that our astrology charts really play a role in how we love?
Oh yeah, for sure. I did a live last night with astrologer Nicole Krasnoff, and we opened up my chart on live, and she was saying like all my planets, because I was asking her like, why have I've been on 4 dating shows? I'm like, why? She's like, because your sun is in the 5th house, which is Pisces, so that's more like love, romance, entertainment, pleasure, fun, children. Like you want to be seen in that house because when your sun is in a place and in your house, and people know astrology, that's where you shine the most. And then your MC is in Leo, so that's gonna give you this magnetic presence to be on TV or to be in the public eye. So I'm like, it's just like whoever you're gonna be with is gonna be someone who's strong, that's independent. Like he was just breaking it down, and I started thinking about all my past relationships. Like, oh, this is me. Or why do I always attract people long distance? Oh, my moon is in Sagittarius. I like my space. I like my freedom. So I got more clarity on what I attract and what I've been through. So it just helps. It's just like having information when you go to the doctor. They tell you, oh, you got to stop drinking soda, stop eating candy. It's the same thing. So it's just all about understanding it and wanting to know more so it can help you.
And this next question comes from my sister because she's the biggest fan of you. She's the one that put me onto you. She would like to know, has the ghost of Bachelorette past haunted you in some type of way, or has it impacted you in ways to this day, either negative or positive?
When she say the ghost in what regards or capacity?
I don't know. But I guess is there something that maybe has haunted you about the show or just, yeah?
Not nothing at all. I mean, I was myself. I learned a lot about the show. The show actually grew me in so many ways. I'm so thankful for the opportunity with, Mike Fleiss, Elon Gale, Eddie Young, Shabby, Steve, the handler, like all the phenomenal people that come from that season. So, I mean, there's nothing from the past that harmed me because I was myself. It served a great purpose. Like, I mean, till this day, I'm still getting opportunities of people knowing me from that show, and that was 7 years ago. So for me, it's like, I mean, I was in France and someone was like, I know you. And I'm like, you don't know me. Like, what you mean you know me? It's like, no, it's like, and so, and to this day, I'm like, because there's been so many shows beyond my show. For people to still remember me, I always think like, I know who I am, I know what went on, but what impact did I really have on people that I'm not aware of? For people to still remember me from 7 years ago, right? So I'm just thankful. I'm fortunate. It's been a blessing in my life and career. So there's no ghost. There's nothing haunts me. What's for me is for me. No one can be me more than me. I never, like I said before, there's no competition but myself, and I'm just honored and thankful to be here in this way.
I like that. And I do want to kind of go a little bit back into personal stuff and more healing. Recently, you were on the Surrounded by Idiots podcast, and you talked about how you had misinformation and how you had internalized what you didn't get because you didn't know. And that was relating to your parents. And so you talked about your mom being a single mom, how she felt she needed to raise you, your dad being in the streets, and so forth. But what else was some of that misinformation? And in what ways did you put your feelings first before your parents' truth? And what were those feelings?
I mean, I could cry right now, because it was like, I could see my mom. Like, my mom has a lot of masculine energy, right? She's Aquarius. She don't really speak on her emotions as much. She could be detached, but I know my mom feels deeply. Like, I can feel my mom. And so over the years, I was a kid. I mean, I didn't get affection. My mom wasn't telling me she loved me. My dad wasn't telling me he loved me. Nobody was hugging me. No one was telling me you're gonna be okay. I'm proud of you. So the way I give it is because that's the way I wanted it. That's why I'm so empowering when it comes to these words and helping people, inspiring people, loving people. I didn't get it, so I became it. And then as I've gotten older, I had to realize what my mom and dad didn't get from a loving situation or from parents, what they went through. And as of recently, I said in the Idiots podcast, shout out to Mastro. Actually, he's one of the actors from the TV show The Wire, that people don't know, in Baltimore, the connection. Was that my mom really opened up to me. She was telling me, like, and I knew this, you probably don't, but she told me at 25 that I was premature. I came a month early, and I had a twin. My twin didn't make it, and it was a girl. And so she always say, I feel like your twin lives inside of you. That's probably where my femininity comes into. That's my twin living in me. And she was saying, so the thing is, my sister and I, we're 1 day and 1 year apart. So she's March 8th, I'm March 9th, right? So she said, when your sister turned 1 year old, you were in the hospital with tubes in your mouth, right? And the doctor was telling me you might not make it while I was celebrating your sister's first birthday. And so, yeah, and then she told me also that my dad didn't want to have me. Like, he told her she should get an abortion, right? So my mom had all this internal pain. She had me at 21. She was a kid. So she had all this internal pain that I wasn't aware of. Her and my dad had a tough, period where it was tough. My dad was on, he's in a whole nother, space that caused a lot of internal pain, mentally, emotionally, physically on her. And I don't know what that's like. I can't relate to that. I don't have kids. I don't know what it's like to be 21 and have 2 kids, and you're distraught. There's so much going on. So how could I expect someone like that to really love me? We wasn't poor. I didn't go without. I had food. I had clothes. She made sure she took us to school. It just was no emotional intimacy there. There was no affectionate. There was no attention. So it's like she did the best she could, and she made me a man early on because of that. She didn't spoil me. You know what I mean? Like, so it made me stronger than ever. But more importantly, that was her truth and that was her reality. I can't make her feel bad for something she didn't know how to do, or she was doing the best she was. So I was willing to get that information, to have forgiveness and have grace and love. I said, "Man, I love you. I apologize. I'm sorry." But I had to grow up. I had to become a man to realize what it takes.
Mm.
You
And
know?
yeah. And can you just talk a little bit more about that process of coming to that breakthrough, like really just working on yourself to get to this point?
Well, it's just also just I'm curious, right? I'm a curious soul, so I'm getting to the root. Like, is there a problem that's in my way of growing of it? I'm getting to the bottom of it. All right, what's this about? Or why I keep attracting this type of person? So for me, it was just curious about their upbringing and trying to really understand them from a personal and human level, and not from a parent title level, because you're a human being before you're anything. You're a woman who's my mom before you're a woman first, then you're a person, then you're a daughter, then you're a parent. You know, like, so I can't just put this hat on you and then like, you're my parent. You should. It's like, no, no, no. Who are you as a person first? And then from there, once I kind of got some grace and gratitude around that, it just was easy to love and accept what didn't happen. And I'm like, thank you. I appreciate you. And I love you. And I'm always love you, no matter what happens or didn't happen. I just got real perspective because I was willing to get it and not be so on my ego and have resentment because of fear.
Mm-hmm. I like that. And a follow-up question too is, when or if you have kids, what are you hoping to instill in them? What spiritual values, lessons do you hope to teach them? And what do you want them to know about the role parents play in our lives?
The first thing that comes to mind is peace. How to be peaceful, how to be ease, love, a lot of love, empowering and confident, and teaching them about faith and their spiritual self. I think if they can understand that internal being more than what they see, the external world will be really great, once they can process when they're going through emotions that they'll make sense, or they're crying or they're in fear, and allowing them to be vulnerable and communicate how they feel without shutting them down, because I don't want to hear them crying or making noises, right? Just letting them be, but also giving them discipline. I think kids don't get discipline these days. Like, I make my nephews do push-ups every time I see them. I make them read out loud every time I see them. So I'm gonna love them. I'm gonna encourage them. I'm gonna motivate them, but I'm also gonna hold them accountable and hold them to their standard and ask them what they want from whatever they're doing or where they're at, and not try to project my truths or fears on them unconsciously. So just peace, love, like I said, faith, and just teaching them about, letting them know that they can be confident in whatever they want to do, and I got their back.
And speaking of like the internal self and spirituality, I want to know too, how do you focus on what you want without worrying? And where is your higher self headed to next? I know you focused on killing the ego, the character that you were previously portraying. What's the next level for you?
The next level for me is fulfillment, doing the things that fulfill me. That's what I'm called to do and made to do, not what I think I should do. And just constantly asking questions of, like, if there's some roadblocks or some mental blocks or emotional blocks or spiritual blocks in a way, like, how can I unpack those? How can I understand them? And how can I move through them with faith and not fear? And just really being what God want me to be in this lifetime, my higher self. Like, I want to only be the best. I want to be the best me alive. I don't want to be mediocre. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it to the best of my ability, and there's going to be some challenges that comes with that, some highs and lows. But I'm open to it all. Like, I gave you a scenario. I spoke at a Fortune 5000 company like 3 months ago, and it was horrible. I beat myself up for a few days, and I said, it's okay. That was your first time. Move on. But everything is not perfect. Everything is not a win for me. Things are learning lessons as well. So just being my best.
And I like how you said too that everything's not perfect. That's something I'm continuously working on. Because even today I was like, oh, this interview just has to be perfect. If it's not,
Yeah.
but you just, once you just kind of let go and you start really accepting yourself for who you are, it definitely works out. And then just tagging on to that about purpose. I know you're big on that, and being aware of your gifts and just going for it. So how can people, whether it be in their inner circle of family, friends, or in general, encourage each other to truly go for what they want? And I ask this because as humans, we have a tendency to focus on what statistics say, our emotions, our environment, and so forth. So what can we all do to genuinely help and support each other to achieve bigger things?
Oh, radical acceptance. You just got to have radical acceptance of saying yes to all of life, right? Like, saying yes to all the things, not the things you just like, because then you're being selfish to yourself. Say yes to things you don't like. Radical acceptance. When you can truly accept yourself and take full responsibility of the things you said, did, and continue to be, and you accept it and you acknowledge it, you can do that in others. And there'd be less fear around you growing and being the best person you can be. and being able to take constructive criticism, feedback. You can't stray away from that because anybody that's successful, great, has a great coach or have a few mentors around to help them get to where they want to go. So with those things, you can always win, and always learn, and then there's nothing standing in the way but yourself and about what you want and how much you want to invest and how much time and energy you want to put into what you love and care about.
Mhm. And you mentioned feedback, right? But in your opinion, why are people so afraid to seek that feedback? Obviously, fear plays a role in that, I'm sure, but why are people just so afraid to accept that, to really get the help?
Because people are afraid of themselves. They're afraid of their power. They're afraid of the truth. And to step into your power takes responsibility. And people don't want to be responsible for their power or their truth because they have to change things in them that's going to make them uncomfortable. It's that simple. There's things to this day like I got to do that. I'm like, got to grow though. Can't stay the same if I want these things to change in my life. So
Absolutely. And I just have one final question for you. And this is a question that I ask every guest that comes on my podcast. Because as you know, the name of my show is called Humble Beginnings, and
yeah.
humility is one of the principles that I value. And so I would like to know, how do you stay humble?
I think the first thing is not forgetting where I come from and to know that it can be you. Meaning, like, there's a book, a friend of mine, Joanna, she has a nonprofit called It Can Be You. And so what she did was took a bunch of influencers, took their stories, and then found stories that were relatable of people who had the same story, but they failed and became homeless. So it was a reminder of, don't ever get it twisted. It can be you, meaning, um, just just know that you're human. Things happen, things change. But never think you're too above the law. Never think you're too important for anyone to be nice, to be polite, to be genuine. We're all human, and at the end of the day, what really keeps you humble, we all gonna leave this earth. So I don't care how much money, how much fame, who you date, who you hang around, who you know. At some point, we all gonna take out. We're gonna expire. So if you can keep that in mind and really think about what you're gonna do in that dash, there's a dash poem. I don't know if you read it before. I think that'll keep you humble to know that you get this one life, live it the best way you know, and know so many different worlds out here that we don't know about, and everyone is not as fortunate that you might be, or less fortunate that you are. So never forget where you come from, and just know like it can be you. So never take life for granted. Basically, what I'm saying. That's how I stay humble because I've seen so much of life in different ways. So I try my best to be the best and add the best. So I don't take these things for granted because I know what humble is and what it looks like.
I love that. And with that being said, Eric, again, thank you so much for coming on the show, for being my first on video interview, and just for really taking the time to really just share your wisdom. And to the audience, I hope that some gems were grasped, and that you guys just learned some new information. And with that being said, I will talk to you guys later.